Diddy Trial Explained: What really happened behind closed doors. What happened in the trial? Sean Diddy Combs, a major figure in hip-hop and entertainment, was charged in federal court in New York in 2025 with racketeering, sex trafficking, and transportation for prostitution related to alleged abuse and coercion. After a 7-week trial, the jury acquitted him of the most serious charges, sex trafficking and racketeering, but convicted him on 2 counts of transportation for prostitution under the Mann Act. Sentencing and punishment. On October 3, 2025, Combs was sentenced to 50 months, about 4 years and 2 months, in federal prison, fined $500,000, and ordered to serve 5 years of supervised release after prison. He has been serving his sentence since his 2024 arrest and remains in custody at a federal facility in New Jersey, with a potential release around mid-2028. Appeals and legal developments. Combs's lawyers have filed an appeal seeking immediate release or a reduced sentence, arguing the sentencing judge improperly considered acquitted allegations, resulting in an unusually harsh punishment for the crimes of conviction. Key evidence and testimony. Prosecutors presented testimony from more than 30 witnesses, including former partners and associates, describing coercive and abusive encounters. Much of the trial focused on so-called freak-offs, drug-filled sexual encounters Combs allegedly orchestrated, and a widely seen hotel assault video involving ex-girlfriend Cassandra "Cassie" Ventura. Public and cultural impact. The case has spurred intense debate about power, accountability, and celebrity, with supporters defending Combs's contributions to music and critics seeing the verdict as a measure of justice for alleged victims. Combs's conviction on prostitution counts, even without the more serious trafficking verdict, has damaged his public image and prompted ongoing civil lawsuits. In brief, Diddy remains in federal prison after a high-profile 2025 trial where he was acquitted of the most serious charges but convicted on 2 prostitution-related counts and sentenced to over 4 years. His legal team is appealing the sentence, arguing it was unfairly influenced by evidence tied to charges where he was found not guilty. AP News. The allegations that changed everything. The initial shockwaves. When the first allegations against Diddy emerged, many dismissed them as the typical accusations that plague powerful figures, disgruntled former associates, opportunistic claims, or misunderstandings blown out of proportion. But as more individuals came forward, a disturbing pattern began to emerge. The allegations centered on multiple instances of misconduct and abuse, spanning several years and involving numerous individuals. These weren't isolated incidents or single complaints. They represented a systematic pattern of behavior that allegedly occurred both in professional and personal settings. The nature of the accusations. The charges brought against Diddy include physical abuse allegations. Multiple individuals have come forward claiming they experienced or witnessed physical violence. These allegations describe incidents ranging from aggressive confrontations to more serious assaults. The accusers include former employees, associates, and individuals who had personal relationships with Diddy. Emotional and psychological abuse. Beyond physical allegations, several witnesses have testified about sustained patterns of emotional manipulation and psychological control. These testimonies paint a picture of someone who allegedly used his power and influence to intimidate, coerce, and dominate those around him. Abuse of power. Perhaps most significantly, the allegations highlight how Diddy's position in the industry allegedly allowed him to operate with impunity. Witnesses have described a culture of fear within his organizations, where speaking out could mean career suicide. Pattern of behavior. What makes these allegations particularly damaging is the consistency across multiple accusers. Similar stories, similar tactics, similar outcomes, all pointing to a pattern rather than isolated incidents. The legal framework. The prosecution has built their case around several key legal principles. Pattern and practice. By presenting multiple accusers with similar experiences, they aim to establish a consistent pattern of behavior. Abusive position. The charges emphasize how Diddy's power in the industry allegedly enabled and protected his behavior. Witness corroboration. Multiple witnesses who can corroborate aspects of each other's stories, even if they didn't know each other. Documentary evidence. Emails, text messages, financial records, and other documents that allegedly support the accuser's claims. The power dynamics of the music industry. Understanding the culture. To fully grasp the significance of this trial, one must understand the unique power dynamics that exist in the music industry. Unlike many other industries, music operates on a complex system of relationships, favors, and influence that can make or break careers overnight. The gatekeeper effect. Executives like Diddy hold enormous power over artists' careers. They control access to resources, opportunities, and visibility. This creates an inherent power imbalance where challenging someone in Diddy's position could mean professional oblivion. The silence tax. The industry has long operated on an unwritten code of silence. Those who speak out against powerful figures often find themselves blacklisted, their careers systematically dismantled. This silence tax has protected abusive behavior for decades. The mythology of genius. Powerful executives are often shielded by the narrative of genius or visionary. Their behavior, no matter how problematic, is excused as the eccentricity of greatness or the price of success. The Diddy empire. Diddy's influence extended across multiple sectors. Bad Boy Entertainment. His record label launched the careers of Notorious B.I.G., Faith Evans, Maze, and countless others. Fashion. Sean John Clothing Line Spirits. Ciroc Vodka Partnership Media, Revolt TV Network Business Ventures, numerous investments and partnerships across industries. This diversification meant his influence wasn't limited to music. He had the power to affect careers across entertainment, fashion, and media. Crossing someone with this level of reach could devastate a person's entire professional life. Why now? The cultural shift. The timing of these allegations coincides with a broader cultural reckoning about power and abuse in entertainment. The #MeToo movement created an environment where victims felt empowered to speak out, knowing they wouldn't stand alone. Social media amplification. Platforms gave victims a way to share their stories directly, bypassing traditional gatekeepers who might suppress them. Generational change. Younger industry professionals and audiences are less willing to accept the "that's just how things are" mentality that protected abusers for decades. Legal precedents. High-profile cases like those of Harvey Weinstein and R. Kelly showed that even the most powerful figures could face accountability. Inside the courtroom. Key testimonies. The prosecution's case. The prosecution has systematically built their case by presenting a series of witnesses whose testimonies paint a comprehensive picture of alleged abuse and misconduct. Witness 1. The former executive. The first major witness was a former executive at Bad Boy Entertainment who worked closely with Diddy for over a decade. Witness 1. The former executive. The first major witness was a former executive at Bad Boy Entertainment who worked closely with Diddy for over a decade. This individual's testimony was particularly impactful because of their insider perspective on the organization's culture. Key points from the testimony. Described a workplace environment characterized by fear and intimidation, claimed to have witnessed multiple instances of verbal abuse and physical threats, testified about a pattern of behavior where Diddy would allegedly use his power to silence complaints, presented documentation showing NDAs, non-disclosure agreements, that employees were required to sign, often with unusually restrictive terms, described how speaking out about problematic behavior could result in immediate termination and industry blacklisting. The cross-examination was brutal, with the defense attempting to paint this witness as a disgruntled former employee with financial motivations. However, the witness remained composed, and their testimony was corroborated by documentary evidence. Witness 2. The artist. Perhaps the most emotionally charged testimony came from a former artist signed to Bad Boy Entertainment. This individual, whose career showed significant promise before suddenly stalling, provided a deeply personal account of their experience. The testimony. The artist described being discovered and initially feeling grateful for the opportunity to work with such a legendary figure. However, they testified that the relationship quickly became controlling and abusive. Creative control. Allegations that Diddy exerted extreme control over their artistic output, often in ways that were demeaning and destructive. Financial exploitation. claims of financial arrangements that were heavily one-sided, with the artist seeing minimal returns despite significant commercial success. Emotional manipulation, testimony about patterns of emotional abuse, including public humiliation and private intimidation. Career sabotage, allegations that when the artist attempted to leave or speak out, Diddy used his industry connections to block opportunities. The defense challenged the artist's credibility, pointing to their own legal troubles and suggesting the testimony was motivated by ongoing contract disputes. However, the specificity of the allegations and the emotional authenticity of the delivery resonated powerfully in the courtroom. Witness 3. The business partner. A former business partner provided insight into Diddy's behavior in professional settings outside of music. This witness had collaborated with Diddy on ventures in fashion and spirits, offering a perspective on his conduct across different business contexts. Critical revelations described a pattern of aggressive negotiation tactics that allegedly crossed into intimidation. Testified about business dealings where Diddy allegedly used his reputation and connections to pressure partners into unfavorable agreements. Provided documentation showing communications that could be interpreted as threats or coercion. Described witnessing behavior toward employees and subordinates that they characterized as abusive. This testimony was significant because it suggested the alleged behavior wasn't limited to the music industry, but was a consistent pattern across all of Diddy's business dealings. Witness 4. The personal assistant. One of the most detailed accounts came from a former personal assistant who worked for Diddy for several years. This individual had unprecedented access to his daily life, both professional and personal. Shocking details described a 24/7 work environment with impossible demands and no boundaries. Testified about verbal abuse and demeaning treatment. Claimed to have witnessed several incidents of physical altercations. Described being required to sign extensive NDAs and being threatened with legal action for even minor disclosures. Testified about a culture where staff turnover was extremely high due to the work environment. The assistant also provided context about how this behavior was normalized within Diddy's inner circle, how staff members would warn new hires, how there was a shared understanding that this is just how he is, and how the compensation and proximity to power kept people from speaking out. The surprise witness, the moment that changed everything. The courtroom erupts. If there's one moment that will define this trial in the public consciousness, it was the appearance of the surprise witness, someone whose identity had been kept secret until they took the stand. The courtroom was already tense, but when the prosecution called their next witness, a palpable shift occurred. This wasn't just another testimony. This was the testimony that had the potential to fundamentally alter the trajectory of the case. The identity revealed. The surprise witness was a former close personal friend and collaborator of Diddy, someone who had been part of his inner circle for years. This person had maintained public silence about their experiences until now, and their decision to testify sent shockwaves through both the courtroom and the media. What made this testimony particularly powerful was the witness's credibility. This wasn't someone seeking attention or revenge. This was someone with their own successful career, their own reputation to protect, and seemingly nothing to gain from coming forward except the truth. The testimony. The witness began by describing their long relationship with Diddy, emphasizing the friendship and professional respect they once shared. This context made what followed even more devastating. The incident. The witness described a specific incident that occurred during a private gathering at one of Diddy's properties. What started as a celebration turned into something much darker. The confrontation. The witness described seeing Diddy in an altercation with another individual at the party. What began as a verbal disagreement escalated quickly. The violence. The witness testified to witnessing physical violence, describing in detail what they saw and how other people present reacted, or more significantly, didn't react. The aftermath. The most chilling part of the testimony described what happened after the incident. According to the witness, there was an immediate effort to control the narrative, with people being told different versions of what happened and being pressured to stay silent. The cover-up. The witness described how the incident was allegedly covered up, with participants being required to sign additional NDAs and being offered incentives or threatened with consequences to ensure their silence. Why now? The defense immediately questioned why this witness was coming forward now, years after the alleged incident. The witnesses' response was both simple and powerful. They had been afraid. Afraid of the consequences, afraid of destroying their career, afraid of the legal machinery that could be brought against them. But they testified. Watching others come forward gave them the courage to add their voice. They could no longer live with the weight of their silence. The impact. The immediate impact of this testimony was visible in the courtroom. The defense team, which had been confident and aggressive throughout the trial, seemed rattled. The prosecution team leaned back, knowing they had just landed a devastating blow. But the real impact was felt outside the courtroom. Social media explosion. Within minutes, news of the testimony spread across social media platforms. Hashtags related to the trial began trending globally. The witnesses' courage in coming forward was praised, while discussions about the culture of silence in entertainment intensified. Industry reaction. Other figures in the music industry began to speak out, some supporting the witness, others expressing shock. Several people who had previously defended Diddy became noticeably quiet. Public opinion shift. Polls showed a dramatic shift in public opinion following this testimony. Those who had been skeptical of the allegations or willing to give Diddy the benefit of the doubt found themselves reconsidering their positions. The defense strikes back. The strategy. The defense team, led by some of the most high-profile attorneys in the country, has mounted an aggressive response to the allegations. Their strategy has been multi-pronged, attacking the credibility of witnesses, questioning motivations, and presenting an alternative narrative of who Sean Combs really is. Character witnesses. The defense has called numerous character witnesses, successful artists who credit Diddy with their careers, business partners who describe him as demanding but fair, and family members who paint a picture of a devoted father and community leader. The artist testimonials. Several successful artists took the stand to speak about their positive experiences working with Diddy. They described him as a mentor who pushed them to excellence. They testified about his generosity and willingness to give opportunities to those who might otherwise be overlooked. They painted a picture of a perfectionist whose high standards sometimes came across as harsh, but were always in service of creating the best possible art. The philanthropic record. The defense highlighted Diddy's extensive charitable work. His contributions to educational initiatives, his support for underserved communities, his mentorship programs for young artists and entrepreneurs, his donations to various causes and organizations. Attacking the accusers. The defense has also aggressively challenged the credibility and motivations of the accusers. Financial motivations. The defense has pointed to ongoing civil lawsuits and suggested that witnesses stand to gain financially from their testimonies. Credibility issues. They've highlighted past legal troubles, inconsistencies in statements, and other factors that could call into question the reliability of witness testimonies. Alternative explanations. For specific incidents, the defense has presented alternative explanations, arguments that were heated but professional, physical contact that was accidental or misinterpreted, and business decisions that were tough but legal. The alternative narrative. The defense's overarching narrative is that Sean Combs is a demanding, intense, perfectionist businessman operating in a cutthroat industry. They argue that his standards are high because excellence requires it. His business practices are aggressive, but legal. His personality is strong but not abusive. The accusations are a combination of misunderstandings, exaggerations, and opportunistic attacks by those seeking to profit from his success. They've also suggested that this trial is part of a broader pattern where successful Black men in entertainment are disproportionately targeted and held to different standards than their white counterparts. The evidence under scrutiny. Digital trail. Both sides have presented extensive digital evidence: emails, text messages, social media posts, and other electronic communications. For the prosecution. Messages that allegedly show threats or coercive language, communications that appear to corroborate witnesses' accounts of incidents, financial records that allegedly show suspicious payments that could be interpreted as hush money, and DAs with unusually restrictive terms that suggest an effort to hide problematic behavior. For the defense. Messages showing normal business communications, evidence of friendly relationships between Diddy and some accusers after alleged incidents occurred, financial records showing legitimate business transactions, communications that contradict aspects of witness testimonies. Physical evidence. Unlike many cases of alleged abuse, this trial has limited physical evidence, which both sides have used to their advantage. Prosecution argument. The lack of physical evidence is typical in cases involving powerful individuals who have the resources to cover their tracks and the influence to prevent proper investigations at the time incidents occurred. Defense argument. The lack of physical evidence undermines the credibility of the allegations and suggests that many of the claims are exaggerated or fabricated. Expert witnesses. Both sides have called expert witnesses to contextualize the evidence. Prosecution experts. Psychologists who've testified about power dynamics and abuse in professional settings. Industry experts who've described the culture of silence in entertainment. Digital forensics specialists who've analyzed electronic communications. Legal experts on NDAs and when they cross the line into instruments of silencing abuse. Defense experts. Business experts who've testified about standard practices in entertainment contracts and employment psychologists who've discussed false memories and the influence of group dynamics on testimony. Legal experts who've argued that the NDAs in question are standard protective measures. Industry figures who've contextualized the demanding nature of high-level entertainment business. Media circus and public opinion. The 24/7 news cycle. The trial has dominated news cycles, with coverage ranging from serious legal analysis to sensationalized speculation. Every day brings new headlines, new hot takes, and new angles. Traditional media. Major news outlets have assigned teams to cover the trial, with legal analysts breaking down testimonies and predicting outcomes. Social media. Platforms like Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok have become echo chambers where supporters and critics battle, often with little regard for facts or legal proceedings. Entertainment media. Celebrity news outlets are having a field day, connecting the trial to broader narratives about fame, power, and accountability. The public divided. Public opinion on the trial has been sharply divided, often breaking down along various demographic and ideological lines. Team accountability. Many, particularly younger audiences and those active in social justice movements, see the trial as a necessary reckoning. They view it as part of a broader cultural shift toward holding powerful figures accountable for abuse. Team Diddy. Others, particularly those who grew up with his music and admire his business acumen, struggle to reconcile the allegations with the person they thought they knew. Some genuinely believe he's innocent. Others acknowledge he may have flaws but see the trial as an overreach. The skeptics, a segment of the public, approaches the trial with skepticism about all parties involved, questioning whether the accusers are truthful, whether the defense is being honest, and whether the legal system can deliver true justice in such a high-profile case. Cultural implications. Beyond the specific case, the trial has sparked broader conversations about power. How much power is too much? What accountability should come with influence? About the music industry. Is this an industry-wide problem, or is Diddy an outlier? About masculinity. Discussions about toxic masculinity, particularly in hip-hop culture, have intensified. About race and justice. Some have framed the trial within broader discussions about how the legal system treats successful black men versus white executives with similar allegations. About belief and evidence. The case has reignited debates about believing victims versus presuming innocence, and how we navigate these competing values. The implications for Diddy's empire. The business fallout. Even before the trial concludes, there have been significant business consequences. Brand partnerships. Several companies have distanced themselves from Diddy, either ending partnerships or putting them on hold, pending the outcome of legal proceedings. Revolt TV. The media network Diddy founded has faced pressure to address his involvement, with some calling for his removal from leadership. Bad Boy Entertainment. The label's operations have been affected, with some artists expressing discomfort and others standing by him. Personal ventures. From his vodka partnership to his fashion line, virtually every business bearing his name or involvement has felt the impact. The cultural legacy. Perhaps more significant than the immediate business impact is the question of Diddy's cultural legacy. If convicted, a conviction could fundamentally alter how he's remembered. Would he go from being seen as a hip-hop pioneer to a cautionary tale about unchecked power? Would his contributions to music be overshadowed by his crimes? If acquitted, even an acquittal may not fully restore his reputation. In the court of public opinion, the the damage may already be done. The allegations alone have changed how many view him. The complexity question: can we separate the art from the artist? Can we acknowledge someone's positive contributions while condemning their negative actions? These aren't new questions, but this trial has brought them into sharp focus for a new generation. What happens next? The legal road ahead. As the trial continues, several key factors will determine the outcome. Jury deliberations. Ultimately, 12 people will decide Diddy's fate. Their backgrounds, their interpretations of the evidence, and their ability to reach consensus will shape the verdict. Potential verdicts. The range of possible outcomes is wide, from complete acquittal to conviction on all charges, with various possibilities in between. Appeals. Regardless of the verdict, appeals are likely. This case could continue through the legal system for years. Civil suits. Beyond the criminal trial, multiple civil lawsuits are pending. Even if acquitted criminally, Diddy could still face significant liability in civil court. The broader impact. This trial's effects will extend far beyond Sean Combs. Industry reform. There are already calls for industry-wide changes, better protections for artists, stricter accountability for executives, and cultural shifts in how power is exercised. Legal precedents. Depending on the outcome, this case could set important legal precedents for how similar cases are handled in the future. Cultural conversations. The discussions sparked by this trial about power, accountability, and justice will continue long after a verdict is reached. The fall and the future. Sean Diddy Combs stands at a crossroads. The empire he built over decades, through talent, ambition, and relentless drive, now faces its greatest threat. Not from business competition or changing tastes, but from allegations that strike at the heart of his character and conduct. This trial is about more than one man's guilt or innocence. It's about power, how it's wielded, how it's abused, and how it's held to account. It's about an industry grappling with its own demons, forced to confront uncomfortable truths about how success has been achieved and maintained. For those who've followed Diddy's career, from his days as Puff Daddy to his evolution into a business mogul, this moment is jarring. How do we reconcile the person who gave us the music, the fashion, the cultural moments, with the person described in these testimonies? Perhaps the answer is that we shouldn't try to reconcile them. Perhaps the lesson is that greatness in one area doesn't excuse harm in another. That no amount of success or cultural contribution can or should shield someone from accountability for their actions. As the trial continues, as testimonies accumulate, as evidence is examined and cross-examined, we're witnessing more than a legal proceeding. We're witnessing a reckoning, both for one man and for an industry that has too long operated in shadows. The verdict, when it comes, will be significant. But regardless of the outcome, this trial has already changed the conversation. It's made clear that power without accountability is dangerous, that silence protects abusers, and that the culture of fear that has governed parts of the entertainment industry for so long must end. Susana Morales trusted a uniform. Countless artists and employees trusted a brand. Both were betrayed by the very things that were supposed to protect them. The question now is not just what happens to Diddy, but what happens next. Will this be a moment of true change, or will it be another scandal that fades from memory while the same dynamics persist? The trial continues. The world watches. And the future of accountability in entertainment hangs in the balance. Your thoughts? This case has sparked intense debate and strong opinions. What are your thoughts on the allegations? Do you believe the accusers, or do you think Diddy is being unfairly targeted? How should the music industry change in response to cases like this? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And remember, these are serious allegations involving real people and real harm. Let's keep the discussion respectful and focused on the larger issues at stake. For more updates on this trial and other major entertainment news, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. This is a developing story, and as new information emerges, I'll be here to break it down for you.